Well arrived, gentlemen. Welcome, gentlewomen, and also I guess you're happy now that school is over, gentle children. Today we are looking at, if we can call it that, the rework going the way of hunters. We are going to be looking at the changes and what's different in the general tree, but also in the spec tree, this time focusing first on Beast Mastery Hunter, because of two reasons, really. Number one, it is easily the most played spec pretty much in the game overall, and also because it has arguably the most changes coming its way. Now let's do a 5-second quiz. From this picture alone, where do you think I am? From this backdrop alone, where could I be? Well, the correct answer would be Boralus. Yes, if you said that, you would be right. Now, let's go over the first thing that is changing compared to the retail version of Beast Mastery Hunter, and in this case Hunter in general, which is the general talent tree, starting from the defensiveness and the utility that is coming the way of Hunter. This has been a pretty annoying pain point for Hunters, the fact that number one, they don't bring much to a group, and number two, they also kind of die a bit too quickly. So let's start with a few positives. As it often happens during reworks, a bunch of clutter has been slimmed down significantly. For example, Rejuvenating Wind used to be 2 talent points, now it's only 1 talent point. And for the same power level, 8% more max HP and 20% heal over time. Now it's actually even slightly stronger. Same goes for Natural Mending, 2 points to get the cooldown reduction on Exhilaration every 12 focus. Now it's only 1 point, and it's every 10 focus, so it's even stronger, for 1 less point. We can keep doing this, by the way. You have Born to be Wild, which used to be 2 talent points for cooldown reduction, now it's only 1 talent point. And a few other boring talent points, like 2 points just to increase your pet damage by 6%, and another 2 points just to increase your kill command damage by 10%, so you could get to Alpha Predator. These are gone, for example. And even better, we'll talk about this, Alpha Predator is now this way in your talent tree. But there is more, because in terms of defensiveness, first of all, we have to talk about Survival of the Fittest. Default cooldown of 3 minutes. You could reduce the cooldown of this by 20% with 2 points in here, which was a 36-second cooldown reduction. Now, though, Survival of the Fittest can have a 30-second cooldown reduction from Lone Survivor and an extra 30-second cooldown reduction from Born to be Wild, which is a full minute. On top of that, the base cooldown of Survival of the Fittest is no longer 3 minutes, but it's 2.5 minutes. So you have 2.5 minutes base, 2 minutes with this cooldown reduction, and 1.5 minute with this cooldown reduction. So now your main defensive is 1.5 minutes instead of 3. On top of that, in the current live version, you could choose to reduce the cooldown even further, or to give it more damage reduction. This option is gone, but the base damage reduction has been buffed. This used to be 20%, could be buffed up to 40% damage reduction, now it's a flat 30. However, as you can read right below the tooltip, maximum of 2 charges. That's because, thanks to padded armor, now you have double charge of a defensive cooldown on a 90-second cooldown. You also already have your heal, your Exhilaration, which is on a 2-minute cooldown that can have its cooldown reduced by quite a lot, thanks to Natural Mending. You still, of course, have your Turtle on a 2.5-minute cooldown, and you now even have, especially in Mythic Plus, this can be quite useful, Camouflage. Now, Camouflage is normally just a single invisibility, not really useful for your survival. However, with this talent right here, Ghillie Suit, you now get 20% damage reduction while you have Camouflage active and for 3 seconds after leaving Camouflage, which means pretty much every beginning of a Mythic Plus new pool, for example, you can enter the pool in Camouflage to get a damage reduction, or in some cases you can even feign death to get out of combat to use Camouflage to then get the damage reduction. This is not all. On top of all of this defensiveness, you also get a dispel for yourself. Emergency Salve now gives you a poison and disease dispel tied to aspect of the turtle, but more importantly to feign death. It's important because feign death only has a 30-second cooldown. So this practically gives you a poison and disease dispel for yourself every 30 seconds, which is very useful. But the goodies in terms of utility don't just end here, because, for example, one of the more annoying parts of the current version of Hunter is having your AoE CC binding shot tied to another form of single target CC, scatter shot. So you can only choose between the two, and most of the times Hunters will just go for binding shot. Now this problem is gone, because now binding shot it's its own talent. and you can also then go after Binding Shot to take Scatter Shot or to take Bursting Shot, which crawls its way out of PvP, and essentially now Hunter get their own version of Typhoon, your knockback on a balanced druid. Now also Hunters have pretty much their own version. This can further be improved by taking Quick Load, which instantly resets the cooldown of either one of these two whenever you drop below 40% HP, which can happen quite often in Mythic Plus. So you have even more ways to dish out crowd control now as a Hunter. Now, as you can see, not really much has changed in terms of damage. This is your default Mythic Plus Hunter 3. There isn't really much in here in terms of damage. The more standout parts are that Serpent Sting and the following up talents are pretty much gone. They are no longer available in the Talent 3. You also have Explosive Shot and Barrage. Explosive Shot is now much easier to take. It's no longer in the last part of the talent, and also Barrage has been moved away from the general Talent 3. The other major change is the fact that now you have access to Unnatural Causes. And this will start sort of giving you the idea of what's going on, because why would you have a talent that increases your damage over time by 10%? You're a Beast Mastery Hunter, you do pet damage. What is this talent even for? Well, that's why we are here. That's because the rework of Beast Mastery Hunter has given us, some ways to indicate that this might be now a dot-based spec, a damage over time-based spec, given the amount of stuff that is changing in the Beast Mastery Hunter 3. Now, similar to what we talked about for the general 3, there are a lot of discounts in here, a lot of 2 talent points turning into 1 talent point. Like, for example, you have Thrill of the Hunt now being 1 talent point instead of 2. You then have War Orders for more barb shot damage, being 1 talent point instead of 2. You have Dire Frenzy is now a 1 talent point instead of a 2 talent point. So a whole bunch of discounts in terms of points you have available then to spend elsewhere. Now, the elsewhere in here adds some pretty interesting things. For example, Murder of Crows as a talent, as an actual ability you click, is now gone. Number 1, it's no longer a choice with Bloodshed, because now Bloodshed is one of your finishing points. And number 2, your talent that you get to click, Murder of Crows, is now a passive ability. Every 5 casts of kill commands, you simply summon a Murder of Crows. And since it's quite easy for you to cast 5 kill commands in 15 seconds, you practically have a permanent Murder of Crows on an enemy. But the dots continue. We mentioned that Serpent Sting is gone, no longer available. That's because you can get Serpent Sting from here, Kill Shot, now applies Serpent Sting, and number 2, every 5 casts of Cobra Shot or Multi-Shot, you now also have Serpent Sting on target's hit. This is even better when you time it, after 5 casts, you remember yourself to use Multi-Shot, which hits how many? I think 8 or so targets, and this is going to spread Serpent Sting to all of these targets. Now, what gives you an even better idea of the dot focus style of BM, not just from this talent alone, it's also from the new talent in the Beast Mastery Hunter 3, Basilisk Collar, giving you 10% more pet damage per dot on the target. And to then make this even more certain is the new talent, very easy to reach, Laceration, which gives you a damage over time whenever your pets crit. And if you look at this target dummy testing, your Laceration is also a decent part of your damage for just 1 talent point. So now you're in a situation where you get to have 1 dot from Murder of Crows, 2 dots from Barb Shot, 3 dots from Laceration, and 4 dots from Serpent Sting. And when you use your cooldown, Bloodshed is also a dot. That's 5 different dots on the target. So, for example, if we go back to our dummy over here, you will see that when you start, you will see the icon right over here, Basilisk Collar, showing you the amount of dots currently active on the target. Eventually, you will get your Serpent Sting down, you will have your Barbershot still running, you can put down Laceration, and then Murder of Crows will proc, and now you have 5 stacks on Basilisk Collar, which is 50% more pet damage. And this is practically all dot based. Now, it's a bit unfortunate that you have a hero talent which would make you think, aha, that's what Blizzard was thinking with Black Arrow. Fire a Black Arrow into your target, dealing damage over time. Oh, This is an extra buff for our Basilisk color. Well, maybe it's badly implemented or maybe it's by design, but as you can see, if I use Black Arrow, the dot is here, but the buff is not here. So right now, Black Arrow, despite being a dot, doesn't actually count towards your Basilisk color buffs, which is a bit unfortunate. Maybe it's to give you more room to change between Dark Ranger and Pack Leader, since Pack Leader doesn't have any extra dots. There does, however, seem to be a pretty clear, extra focus given to your dot damage and just a series of dot damage options across your tree. You can still sort of ignore most of these if you want to play the traditional BM, so you can get rid, for example, of Bloodshed and its follow-up talent to go back to your, typical Call of the Wild setup. You can also get rid of the Murder of Crows and even get rid of your poison to go back to something more known, like for example your extra kill command damage or your Cobra Senses, and go back like that and ignore most of your dot based stuff, even Basilisk color. Just get rid of it, take Scent of Blood, and then lastly get rid of Explosive Venom for the Serpent Sting dot base and go back to take like Killer Cobra, for example, or Master Handler as well, for example. So you can go back to your already known version of BM Hunter with talents you already take, Piercing Fangs, Blood Frenzy, Call of the Wild, Master Handler. You can still take these, but you also have the option to practically, ignore them, remove them, and instead start going for a more dot-based build. Of course, this will depend on how viable this is, how powerful it's going to be, obviously. But it is definitely an improvement across the board. It's not just an improvement in terms of playstyle, in terms of giving you a different way to play the game with different abilities and different effects that you didn't have from before. Also, your utility and your resistance, your tankiness, your ways to stay alive have now been significantly improved. Even, we are not here to talk about the hero talents because the rework is about the general and the specific talent trees, but even some of the hero talents like Dark Ranger, for example, can give you Smokescreen. Exhilaration gives you 3 seconds of damage reduction, and damage reduction gives you a heal at 50% effectiveness, which is also quite good for defensiveness for Beast Mastery Hunter. That's also a pretty good extra in terms of staying alive. But these are definitely the highlights so far of how Beast Mastery is now playing. There are definitely some significant improvements compared to the previous state of Beast Mastery Hunter that we pretty much know since live, basically. It's a mix, of being more tanky, having more utility, and having some more depth to their damage. Not greatly, not heavily. Many players still enjoy BM for being quite simple, and as we shown, you still have your usual talents to stay rather simple, but then you can also go a bit deeper down the spec and start playing, if it becomes a viable spec in terms of numbers, and play around dots, since now you have 5 dots available. Technically 6, since Dark Ranger also gives you Black Arrow, but for now it doesn't count towards Basilisk color. So with 6 dots, you are pretty much the dot spec in the game right now after this rework. And I don't think Affliction gets to 6 dots, actually. So that's the recap of the rework going the way of Beast Mastery Hunter, and also as far as the general tree goes for the other Hunter specs. So with this, we can now leave each other on this Wednesday after having gone through the changes going for Beast Mastery. We are saying goodbyes, of course, as usual, with a special thanks to everyone who is supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys, of course, for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, you know what? It's not that bad. I have been a Hunter hater since what they did to Survival in Legion, but, this one is not too bad.